Welcome to our series on student loan discharge with bankruptcy, considering the fact that the Trump administration is coming into office, what's going to happen with the practicality of this being a law continuing or not. I want to talk about, Luke, what it looks like once someone goes through the process. They fill out our form, they do an initial screening, they go to your office, they understand the fees, and they sign up with you, right? What does this process look? And let's look at it both ways. People who've already filed and people that haven't filed, because we're going to get to both sets. So let's start with the people that already filed bankruptcy, that maybe it was discharged 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
Right.
What does that look like?
Okay, so the first thing that we want to figure out is if your finances have radically changed from when you filed bankruptcy, right? If all of a sudden you're making $1 million a year, even if you were poor 2 years ago when you filed bankruptcy, now you're making all this money. The Student Loan Administration is going to look at what is your situation now that you're filing 2 years later. So we start by looking to see, has anything fundamentally changed? Have you changed jobs, but you're earning about the same money? Have you added another family member to your family? You know, what's different than what's in your bankruptcy petition? Sometimes very little, right? But sometimes things change a lot, even in a short period of time. So that's what we want to start with. We want to start with, do you still look like you're still a Chapter 7 type candidate at this moment in time? Now, if you've never filed a bankruptcy before, we need to do the same sort of question, which is, are you a good candidate for a Chapter 7 bankruptcy right now? Because the way this process works is you need to get a bankruptcy discharge, which means you have to go through the bankruptcy process. And state by state, that's going to look different, because in Oklahoma, where I am, your homestead almost always is fully exempt. You get to keep your home. But if you're living in Maryland or you're living in some other state, that may not be the case, right? So you want to see, am I a good fit for Chapter 7 bankruptcy where I live?
Mm-hmm.
And if that's the case, you need to get a Chapter 7 bankruptcy discharge, and then we'll combine that with a student loan discharge. But it's always those two questions. Am I a good Chapter 7 candidate? And then layering on top of that, am I a good bankruptcy discharge candidate? And those can be two different answers.
So let's just start with the person that filed bankruptcy. If they did file bankruptcy and there's already discharged and their income hasn't changed, chances are they're going to be fine. That's a piece of cake, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So procedurally, what we'll need to do is we'll need to file a motion to reopen the bankruptcy case.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean that you're going to go through all the process again. All that means is physically think about the courthouse court clerk grabs your file out of cold storage and brings it back to the courthouse so that we can work on the file. So we file a motion to reopen the case so that the file is back to active status. Takes a couple weeks. That's the first step of the process in a case that's already been closed.
Okay. And then, and so point number one, I want to make clear again, we're reopening your old bankruptcy. You're not filing bankruptcy again. Very, very important. And then they go through the attestation, et cetera, right?
Right.
For those that haven't filed bankruptcy, they fill out the form. We qualify them on the form and make sure that they're able to file bankruptcy, Chapter 7, in their home state, wherever that is, right?
Right.
And then if they are able to file bankruptcy, they would still sign up with you or one of our attorneys. You would collect the fees. And when the fees for the bankruptcy is paid, we find one of our attorneys in our network to file the bankruptcy in their home state.
Yeah, and what we want to do is, we're looking to make sure that they're a good fit. We're making sure that this is the right process. And, we'll disclose everything to the court. We'll make sure everything is transparent. But there's more to look at if you haven't actually filed your bankruptcy yet.
There's a lot more to look at, And it's a common question we get. Well, my gosh, does it make sense to declare bankruptcy just for my student loans, right?
And it may, but you definitely need to be a little bit more certain. And it's, again, case by case. That's why you do a consultation.
Yeah.
If you're filing bankruptcy just for student loans, we need to be certain that you're a good fit for this before we pull that bankruptcy filing trigger.
That's the key. I mean, if you're filing bankruptcy for student loans, and let's just say you have 50 or 100,000 of student loan debt, we file bankruptcy for people that have $10,000 of credit card debt.
Right.
I
Yeah,
mean,
there's no minimum number to file bankruptcy on,
Yeah.
right? And oftentimes, if you're somebody with that much student loan debt, there's a good chance you're struggling financially, right? Your student loan debts often get huge because you requested a deferment. You requested a deferment because you weren't able to pay, because you were already struggling with your credit card debt, right? So these things are going hand in hand. People with minor student loan balances aren't looking to file bankruptcy because they've got their financial situation doing great, right?
And okay, so once, let's just say that we get both clients at the point where they filed bankruptcy and we're ready to move forward. What's the process from there on?
Okay, so I've outlined a 10-step roadmap here, and we'll kind of walk through it. So the first thing that we're going to start with is our initial phone call. And we've got some minor questions for you. We get through it pretty quickly. It's maybe a 10-minute phone call where we're just talking about when was your bankruptcy? How much debt's in your bankruptcy? What's your education? And just trying to figure out, okay, were your debts public? Were your debts private? Some of those really basic criteria to see, does this sound like a good fit? Okay, step number one. Step number two is we need you to go do a little bit of homework. What your bankruptcy doesn't really get into is the specifics of where you went to school, whether you finished your degree, what payments you've made. So we're going to send some specific questions, and we also need you to go download a file from the Department of Education website. And that's to help us figure out what is your education and your payment history on your student loans, because that info isn't actually in your bankruptcy petition. It's there in a big picture sense, but not in the specifics that we need for this analysis.
And in the student loan guidance, it says very specific that the debtor, the client, the person with the student loans needs to pull that file, the NSLDS file. The attorney cannot.
The guidelines are specific that attorneys can't go get this for you. And I can give you all the instructions, right? But you have to go do it yourself. It's designed to be pretty easy, but I still can't do it for you.
So when you call in and you get this free consultation, we will show you and tell you how to do it for you to do it. And it really is, as we've talked about, Luke, this is part of the point of meeting with the client, where you want to see that the client is motivated enough to actually do it. Because so many times we, as people who work with clients in debt, they aren't willing to hit the ball back to us, like playing tennis by yourself. It's really no fun. So this allows you to say, okay, great. Here's my NSLDS file. I'm serious about this. Can I qualify?
Right. So now, once you've given us your file and you've given us a little bit of education history, we're going to look at 3 specific criteria. And this is the 3 criteria from the case law that you need in order to discharge a bankruptcy, student loan in bankruptcy. Number 1, can you afford to be paying your student loans right now? And the answer is probably not, because you just filed a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, so you've demonstrated already that you can't be paying your debts. So you're probably a good fit on that prong. Prong number 2 is your future ability to pay. And that's different, right? Because if you're in school right now, you might be able to be paying these after you get out of school, even though you're a candidate for bankruptcy right now. So criteria number 2 doesn't necessarily overlap. So we're going to look at that separately. And then criteria number 3 is your good faith efforts. And that's where we really get into, well, did you finish the degree? Was the degree useful? Did you try and pay for the degree? Did you ask for help? Calling a bankruptcy attorney, that actually shows good faith. That shows that you're seeking professional guidance on, is there a way to deal with my student loan debt? The Department of Education would rather that you make some good faith efforts and talk to some professionals than just burn the letters and throw them in the trash, right? Good faith is our 3rd prong, and there's specific things that we're looking at to demonstrate that.
Great. So current ability to pay, future ability to pay, and good faith efforts.
Yep, those are our 3 criteria.
And it was, for those of you wondering if you can qualify on that, I've learned after seeing so many of these come through, it's the current ability to pay and future ability to pay are the big 2 criterias. And it. I mean, people know it. They're like, oh my God, I can't pay. I can't imagine. And, you know,
Yeah,
it
and
makes
think
it very
about
difficult.
this. What did you go first? What did you go to school for in the first place?
Yeah,
And is that actually what you're doing? Are you making the kind of money you thought that you were going to be making when you went to school? And if the answer is no, then you probably can't be affording to be paying your student loans, right? How many people have you talked to, Phil, where they went to school for something and ended up not being able to make money off of that
the
degree?
majority, the
Right.
majority.
Yeah. And now you're saying, okay, well, now I have all these student loans and I can't do anything with my music degree.
Yeah.
Or, even if you went to a practical skill set, uh, I know a guy pretty well and he went to school for computers, right? But he graduated, couldn't use that degree because of the economic conditions at the time. And then 2 or 3 years go by, all the technology's changed, and now everything he went to school for doesn't even work that way anymore,
Yeah,
right? So he's got a degree in old technology
I
that's
get it.
useless.
I totally get it. Yeah. Okay, next step.
Next step is attorney review. I like to believe that every case is unique and different, and it really is, right? One step or one action that you took or a choice that you made might really, really help your case or make it not as great. And so we need to put attorney eyes on every single case. And so that's our next case. Our next step is once we evaluate that on paper you're a good candidate, well, next let's have an attorney look at it and talk to you and make sure that this really makes sense for you specifically.
Great.
Step 5, payment plan. Like we talked about on our last video, if you had the money to pay for this in full, you probably aren't a good candidate for student loan discharges because student loan discharges are for people who don't have the ability to pay. So the way that we have found the best way to sort of accomplish this is to set up a low recurring monthly payment. We'll talk about it in advance, we'll decide on it, and then we'll come up with an amount. It'll be probably pretty reasonable. They'll say, once you've reached this milestone of payment, we'll file all the paperwork, we'll trust you to keep making the payments, and we'll get the case filed, and then you just keep going with your recurring monthly payment until we're done. And that'll be different on a case-by-case basis, depending on how easy or strong or difficult your case is.
Great.
All right, step
Number
6,
6.
I kind of mentioned this earlier. If necessary, reopen the bankruptcy. Not hard, takes a couple weeks. You got to file some paperwork, get a court order, and mail it out. But we reopen the case so we can work on it.
So it's not the same 90-day process that everyone think they've already gone to. And how far back can we reopen the case?
Best case scenario, you want to have a case that was open in late 2022. I've got a case that we're filing right now where the discharge was actually entered back in 2021.
Mhm.
And so we're kind of trying to test that boundary. But part of what you're also dealing with is the older your bankruptcy case is, the more likely your financial case has changed, right?
Okay.
So ideally within the last couple years, and we could talk about it, but if your case has been open or closed in the last 2 or 3 years, that's the best scenario.
Okay. Great.
Now, also, if you just got your bankruptcy discharge, we don't need to reopen the case. We skip that step because we could start our student loan paperwork right away.
How long does that have to be after that?
It's case by case specific. Every courthouse is different. And also, there are internal things in the case that have nothing to do with your bankruptcy discharge that affect how long your case is open. So your case might close 60 days after discharge, but it might close 2 years after discharge. And that's just not something that we can predict. We just have to open your court file and take a look. Is it closed? Is it open? If it's
Got it.
closed, we'll reopen it.
Great. So after the reopening of the attestation and complaint.
Okay, yeah, the next step, and this is what student loans are really all about, is we're going to file a lawsuit. It's called a student loan adversary complaint. We're going to file a lawsuit against the Department of Education. It is a lawsuit inside of a bankruptcy case. It's called a student loan adversary proceeding. We call it SLAP, right? So we file this lawsuit, and then we have to serve with process the Department of Education. So there's going to be several different addresses that we need to serve process on. to start this process. So we filed a lawsuit, we served the government with paperwork, and then they have 30 days after they're served to reach out to us. In a standard lawsuit, if you don't file a response within 30 days, they would lose the case.
Mhm.
But here, what's going to happen is this. They get served with papers, and the U.S. attorney that gets assigned to the case is going to immediately reach out and say, hey, can we get an extension of time to file a response? And the reason why they do that is so we can begin seeing if we can resolve your case without having to take it to trial.
Great.
So step 8, our next step is their attorneys, the Department of Education attorneys are going to review everything that we've done. They're going to review the lawsuit, our attestation, which is that 60-page or so paperwork. They're also going to review some of the financial documents, maybe some tax returns or bank statements or pay stubs. And they're going to ask some initial questions. Okay, well, what happened with this degree? Why weren't you able to use this? What changed in your life? They're not hard questions, and it's often going to occur by email, but they're going to ask some basic questions, right? So then we'll go back and forth for a little bit, and it doesn't move quickly. Once they're satisfied that they have all their answers, the attorney for the Department of Education is going to take all the paperwork that they have and forward it to a committee that the Department of Education has for reviewing these. That committee review process takes months. It could take as little as 4 months. The longest I've seen is 12 months. That doesn't mean that there's anything bad with the case. That's just how fast government works, right? So in the meantime, we keep granting extensions on their ability to file an answer, and we wait for the committee to come back with the results.
Great.
All right, then the final step is the committee gives us the answer. And in all the cases that we've filed so far, that we presented to the Department of Education, when we believe there's a good case, when their attorneys believe there's a good case, the committee has agreed. And so then the committee comes back and says, we won't stand in the way of a discharge. We prepared an agreed order, we submit it to the bankruptcy judge, and we get the student loan discharge. And now technically what we're doing is we are getting a court order that says your bankruptcy discharge that you already got now includes student loan debt.
And then they are discharged forever.
Right. And here's what's beautiful about discharge. Discharge is not a taxable event, and that's different from forgiveness. If a debt in your life is forgiven, you have to be concerned about whether you just created imputed taxable income. That does not apply to bankruptcy discharge. So if you discharged $100,000 of student loan debt, that doesn't count as income. That's just written off, gone, discharged.
What's amazing about this, Luke, is the fact that, I mean, this is something so new, and people are now starting to catch wind, because the first year was like nothing. And now by an order of magnitude, it's going up.
Yeah.
Especially now, because there's a possibility that the Trump administration is going to pull this back. Like, now's the time to get in line. Because if not, if you wait too long, then it won't work.
Yeah. Right? We just don't know.
Yeah.
But we do know it works right now.
Yeah. That's fantastic. So if people want more information, free consultation, and this is a free consultation until you're ready to move forward, studentloanrelief.us. We're going to do a screening. We're going to send you to Luke. We're going to send you to other attorneys we work with around the country that best fits the mold for you. And Luke, thanks for being on this call and just educating our clients on the process. This is Luke Homan, president of Convenient Bankruptcy.